to our faithful followers. As you all know, we have been looking for people in our area to interview who are especially inspirational. And today we have someone with us who is not only inspiring, but he also knows a lot of history about our new building here at Lebanon Insurance. So we have Ira Quillen with us. Hello.
Hey there.
And this is an extra special interview because Jessica and I get to sit together with Ira and just hear all the details about what he studied over the years. So tell us a little bit about your backstory, your experience as a historian. And
well, I'm from here. I grew up here. Had a brother and a sister. My dad was a local lawyer. My mother was a nurse.
Okay.
And so I stayed here until I went to the University of Tennessee, and I stayed in Knoxville, and then I got a job in Bristol, which was nearby at Channel 5. I was a reporter over there.
Sure.
Then I went. I could go on forever.
Yeah, we read your resume is impressive. We read it. But,
I worked in Knoxville during the World's Fair on TV reporter.
That's awesome.
Bristol, CYB, even did some weather.
Yeah.
People say, you don't like on that weather, do you? I said, no, I don't know anything about it. And I was just a fill-in. Now they got meteorologists doing it.
Sure.
And then after Bristol, I went to Roanoke, and I worked for all three stations in Roanoke, Lynchburg.
Saw that.
Then I went to Charlotte and worked at two stations down there. And then in 16, I came home, and now I'm kind of taking care of my dad more than anything else.
Okay.
And I write for the Lebanon News.
I started saying you're working for the paper.
I've written 21 articles for them, and I've got 2 more in the works.
Okay, awesome.
You'll be 23.
Yes, we love that. And I might have read also that you were an extra in a movie.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's you won't believe this. So as I was a fill-in weatherman. I knew nothing about it. I was just a fill-in, and the newswoman Velma Scaife was the anchor of the news on Channel 5, and she had a baby. She was on maternity leave. So the real weatherman was doing the news, and the reporter, me, was doing the weather. But at that time, as luck would have it, producers of a movie called The River were in Kingsport, watching Channel 5, wanting to get a country guy to play a Tennessee weatherman.
And that movie was starring Sissy Spacek and
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson.
They were in bed watching me on TV.
Oh, wow.
So my role was 14 entire seconds, but I've gotten a residual for 35 years. I think Mel and Sissy get more, but you know.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
But still, how many people have been in a movie?
Especially with that kind of...
I know, it's a big deal. And it was filmed in Gate City and Kingsport and Bristol. And so they came to Channel 5, and we made 10 different takes or 10 different copies of this weathercast. And they said, well, you need to write the script. I said, well, I don't know enough about it. I had to get Rick Mitchell to write it and pay him. See, I wasn't a weatherman.
Right.
I was just a reporter who filled in doing weather. But it was a fluke.
And then,
It was just meant to be.
So go watch The River and look for Ira as the weatherman.
I'm near the end, about 30 minutes from the end.
Okay, good to know. So tell me again, what brought you back to Lebanon? Was it to help take care of family or?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I kind of aged out on TV. I started when I was 16 in radio.
Okay.
And I'd been in it for 40 years anyway. So I just got to where I was too old for the jobs. And, you know, technology has changed tremendously.
Right, yeah. Rapidly
changed. I mean, how much
a lot.
did you see with that?
I was the first class at Tennessee that had videotape. Before that, they were editing on film. And, you know, Merrill Moore at Channel 5, I don't know if you all remember him, but he said they had to have it in the soup at 3:30 to get it on the 6 o'clock news back in the old days. So I was glad I came along when videotape started.
Sure. So you've done a lot of historical research too, we understand.
Yeah, I'm basically a Civil War buff.
Okay, so tell us, what's the most interesting thing you've learned, would you say?
That my great-grandfather was in the Confederate Army, and he was captured at the Battle of Cumberland Gap.
Oh, wow.
And he was in a Yankee prison for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
He was in Kentucky and Louisville, and then they moved him to Camp Douglas, Illinois, near Chicago. And I'm trying to get the people up there to tell me more about the Confederates that were held up there. Some of them were offered jobs in the Union Army if they would join it. They could get out of prison if they joined the Union Navy or went out Indians fight Indians out west for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they did it, or many of them. I mean, they were starving, but not many of them did it.
Mm-hmm. So who do you reach out to? You said you're trying to get them to tell you more about it. Who?
It's called Camp Douglas, Illinois. It's at the University of Chicago. That's where the camp was, where the University of Chicago is now.
I see what you're saying.
But because of the pandemic, they weren't giving out a lot of stuff, and it's called Fold 3, and they release all this information. But if I can get into that information, I will know something.
Oh,
I want to know how he got back to Chattanooga, and then left the Army in 1865. He left the Confederate Army in 1865.
Wow, that's interesting.
But I don't know what all these men went through, but there were hundreds of them who were captured down to the Cumberland Gap.
Wow, and you're right to go that far and make it back. That's
That is, I mean, surviving in prison camps were awful in the Civil War for both sides. But to be in prison for 2 years?
That's a long time. I mean,
I got this picture of him from 1880, and it has my great-grandfather in it as a kid.
really?
It's incredible. It's a good picture.
Well, we had an interesting conversation about the history of the building, and you knew so much about the area and so much about the building that I was just so impressed. But what's your first memory, I guess, of this building, this area? I know you.
Well, my best friends were Jim and Bill Garrett, who lived across the street over here, and I think they were related to the Garretts that had it, but I'm not sure. But it makes sense that they did.
I would say so. But I found most Garretts around this area
Yeah,
on the street. Were
it's
connected.
a popular name though.
It is, for sure.
But near as I can tell, this building is the oldest in Lebanon, built around 1832, and there was a guy named Carroll who wrote hymns and was a minister.
I read that.
And I think it's online. He might have had it built for him, maybe.
Okay,
But
yeah.
I don't know who built it.
I don't either. But
I'm not sure who built it either,
Yeah.
but I do remember that name.
James Carroll, is that what you heard?
That sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read that the man who came in to build some of the first sidewalks in Lebanon lived here during the
Oh,
time
wow.
that he was doing the construction. So I don't know if you had heard or read
I
it.
haven't heard that, but that would
Yeah.
make sense.
Okay, yeah.
I would have to.
But a lot of bricks back in the old days, you didn't get brick from somewhere else. They made the brick on site with fire. And sometimes slaves built brick stuff. They were the builders of the time.
I didn't realize that.
But in 1832, there weren't that many slaves around here, but there were some.
Yeah.
That hadn't occurred to me, but it makes sense.
And of course, we heard that it kind of tied into the first electricity in the area too. Have you heard that? Or
No, but I guess rural electrification back in the early part of the 20th century, that would have come along right around then, wouldn't it?
Sure.
I mean maybe the 20s or 30s, probably.
So, I mean, I think
100 years ago.
I think we read that this was the first building to also have electricity in the town. Is
Well,
that
it
what
said
you got?
that preacher was very wealthy, so that makes sense.
Oh, okay. I wonder where he came from.
No,
That's interesting. I've not heard anything about his story either.
that's all I've heard. Just James Carroll, a wealthy minister who wrote hymns.
That makes sense.
I wonder what you can find it on the internet, isn't it?
Right, yeah, it is. So, were you familiar with the structure of this building before it's been built on too, right? There have been additions made to it?
Yeah, it seemed smaller before, but I don't remember.
Okay.
I just remember the front. I don't remember the back like it is.
Okay.
Most must have happened in the back, but the front was just a simple structure with the walk up.
Okay.
But steep steps, wasn't it?
Oh,
They are
very
steep.
steep steps. My little short legs, they have a hard time getting up
Yeah,
on steep.
it is steep.
I almost dropped the tripod.
First time I came here, I came up the front. I didn't know any better, but
Oh, yeah.
it's much better in the back now.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, for sure.
Yeah, just turn up by Pizza Town, or not Pizza Town, Pizza Plus, and just come up that back road. That's what we usually do. Yeah.
I heard that John Mast, who had the Piggly Wiggly, I don't know if you saw my story in the Lebanon News, he was a wholesaler too. He sold groceries to mom and pops. And he had a little building over there where Pizza Plus is now. A little gray building that he kept food in, frozen I guess, and that's where he distributed it to mom and pop stores.
Isn't that interesting? I hadn't heard that.
See, I interviewed David Jinks for this Piggly story, my friend,
Yeah.
and he told me about John Mast.
I've heard the name and I read this.
Oh yeah, he was a businessman. He owned 6 Piggly Wigglies around here.
Wow.
And it was the only store around it. We had the Modern for a while out near where the DMV is now. The Piggly was the store.
That was
People
it.
went
Yeah.
to before Walmart or anything.
I guess you've seen a lot of changes with the
Yeah,
stores and the main
just within
street in
60 some
general.
years that I've been around here.
What's the biggest change you've seen, I guess, through the main street?
Mostly it's chains instead of mom and pop stores. There used to be all kind of stores in downtown Lebanon. There were the City Market, which was a grocery store that preceded the Piggly, and some people that worked at the City Market later worked at the Piggly. But there was another Jinx and Mass department store I've heard in the 30s, and they were all down there beside the monument near the bank.
Okay. Yeah.
That makes sense, because I've seen some pictures that are older of the town,
And it
that's
was a
where
busy
all the
store,
people
busy
are.
place.
Yeah.
On both sides of the street, but it's moved out now. We've gotten away from these downtowns, which is kind of sad in a way.
I feel like maybe some of us are trying to move back to that, though. I know that even in Burlington, where I live, they're trying to rebuild, bring it back downtown. So, and I feel like
Burlington had a lot of the
yeah.
industry there, didn't they? A lot of
Hosiery.
yeah. And we had some of that around Burlington, Plant, and Bristol for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
The
that.
Burlington Mills was a big deal.
That's good to know. You need to just come hang out here. Tell us everything you know.
We love history.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a big deal.
It is.
It is. It really is. So let's talk about. It's almost Halloween. Who has heard stories about this building being haunted? Tell me some stories that you've heard specifically.
Well, I've just heard that it's haunted, and I've heard that there were Civil War, I guess you would call it conscripts. See, at first, the Confederates had a lot of people who volunteered, but then they realized they didn't have enough men, and they didn't have enough from out here, because slavery wasn't that big a deal here, so they weren't as involved in the, different people fought the war for different things, like because they were invaded for one thing. But some people who were going to be conscripted in the Confederate Army allegedly hid in the attic of this house when they came through looking for them.
Okay.
But there weren't many battles around here. The Yankees wanted Saltville, of course, because of the salt, and that guy was from here. That was Jeb Stewart's brother, William Alexander Stewart, who runs a Stewart Land and Cattle Company. It's up at Rosedale now.
Yes.
Yeah. Neat. Now, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize the connection there.
Yeah, that was Jeb Stewart's brother. And after Jeb was killed in 1864 at Yellow Tavern, he took care of Jeb's wife. And they lived in Saltville mostly, and there's a Stewart house over there.
I didn't realize there was
But they lived up in Elk Garden in the mansion. I did a story on that too. That Ellenbrook, have you heard of it?
Yes, actually, Lauren, she's getting ready to get married at Ellenbrook.
Oh, that's a great place. Yeah, you'll like the Varneys. They're nice people.
They are.
They're the caretaker. Have you met them?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, they helped me with that story a great deal. And I also got Channel 11 to do a story on them.
Awesome.
And Kelly Grosso came up here and did a story on them. Because they offered to put the Confederate statues back there that were taken down in Richmond. And there's one of Jeb Stewart that was taken down, and that would go well up there because his brother owned that place.
Right. Yeah, that does make sense.
And it is. It's a beautiful and an interesting place. I've been up there.
And they've got plenty of land. They could put them all.
Yeah, they do.
They could put all the Richmond monuments, but apparently they're going to be melted down, which is kind of sad in a way. The monuments are.
Right. Right.
It is kind of sad. Just because from the history aspect
Yeah.
of that side. But sometimes it's hard to know what's best to
It
do.
is.
And
It is. It's interesting.
it is. It's an interesting time.
We haven't really had to think about monuments much, but at least we saved ours
Yeah.
for now.
Well, speaking of that, do you know the history of the monument here in town? I know a lot of people.
Well, it used
talk
to be in
about
the
it.
center of town, and people kept hitting it with cars, so they moved it to the side. And I think maybe the one in Abingdon might have been in the center of town, but it was right in the middle of the road, and people would run into it, and they got tired of damaging it, so they moved it over to the side. But
Okay.
I think it's been there since 1914.
Wow, that's a long time.
Sounds
It
like
is.
a wise move.
It was.
Oh my goodness.
But that makes sense, because going back to the haunted stuff, I've been hearing all these people tell me stories that's been here through there's been so many businesses in this building. through the years, and so many different tenants, and they've all talked about seeing things, or especially hearing things upstairs in the doors.
It's mostly energy, more than it is a ghost per se.
Yeah.
But like, they might protect the place. That's what the ghosts do.
Yeah.
They protect the place that they once lived in. But it's not like ghost story haunting people. They're generally benign, I think.
That makes sense. And then I agree with you, because as funny as it sounds, when I was looking at the building the first time, I made the comment I needed to come back by myself to see what the inside felt like, to see what the vibe was like. And I said, oh, it feels good.
Sometimes they're active on anniversaries of things.
That makes sense.
You should pay attention to that.
We will have to pay attention to that.
Why did you want to buy this building yourself? Why did you want your business here?
Well, I had kind of been looking for a place for a while, something that kind of felt like my own, and that was a hard decision for me because the business had been on the other end of Main Street, and of course Ralph was my mentor, and we had it there since, I believe, 65. So moving it was a big deal. And
that's another story. Have you heard the truck story with Ralph? When the truck rolled off the building and trapped Ralph in his office against the wall?
Believe it or not, my desk, it was where his desk was when that happened, when I worked out there for years. There was still a little place in the wall where it hit and threw him across the room.
God, he was lucky, wasn't he?
Oh, my word.
You never heard that?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it was in the morning, like he said, and it came down and it hit him and it threw him across the front office, and he hit the filing cabinets. But anybody that knew Ralph knows that he was kind of a workaholic.
He was.
And he got upset that they made him get checked out. He wanted to go back to work. He didn't want to go to the hospital.
He's lucky it wasn't any worse. Were they building Pittston up there?
It was something to do with Pittston. I don't remember the
That
whole
used to be
story.
the headquarters of Pittston Coal Group.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I covered the coal strike in the 80s, that was where we went to interview the guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was interesting.
But it was a Pittston Coal Group before it was a school.
Yeah, I can vaguely remember that when it was Pittston, but...
I'm talking like 89, 90, that's when I came here to interview him.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
We had a real bad coal strike around here in 89, 90. Went for 10 months.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
had to come in from Roanoke to cover it.
We were gone then. My uncles may have been involved in that, though.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like they would have been.
It was a big deal.
I have to admit, I don't remember. I was alive. And
Yeah,
I was young,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
don't remember it.
Right.
But I remember when I was in Roanoke at SLS, I was a reporter up there in the New River. I was in the Blacksburg office, and NBC called me. Do you all have anything on the coal miners? We don't have anything. I said, yeah, I was down there yesterday. You can have everything I got. So they thought nothing existed. Why had the miners being arrested?
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
It was, and it got on NBC News that night.
That's awesome. See, those are stories I like to hear, too.
Yeah.
Is all the stuff that you've seen like that. That's so amazing.
They're just journalists like us. They just make more and are seen by more people, I guess you'd say.
That makes sense. The biggest thing is just getting those stories out. And I think that it sounds like that's what you enjoy most about it. Too.
Yeah, it is. Telling people stuff.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of power when you're on television. You really have to be careful what you say.
Right, right. Because it can be taken out of context.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We see that some with social media now, and I don't think people sometimes realize the power
And
of
it's
that.
real partisan.
But it's still nothing like television. I can't
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, it's kind of a new age thing, but it's coming on, isn't it?
Oh, it is
I
very.
think newspapers will eventually go to streaming. They'll probably just be online instead of in your hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely see that happening.
I
I'm
know.
kind of surprised it hasn't already.
Yeah, it's happening in some places more than others. But that's the wave of the future.
Right. It'll probably happen here last. We'll be the last ones to do it.
I'm old-fashioned about that. I like to hold a
Yeah.
paper and a book.
That's what Jerry Lark said. He said, I'm going to do it the old way.
That's good. He's been doing it a long time.
So, yeah, 50 years, 52 years, I believe. That is a long time to be an editor of a paper.
Yes. And it's impressive, like you said, because so many little papers are closing down.
They are.
They're still going.
It is
strong.
really bad that that's happening.
We appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us and our viewers. We know that, well, no, not we know, but we do share a love of history just as you do. So tell us what you think the most important thing is when it comes to preserving the rich history of this area. What do we all need to be doing?
Teaching the younger people what happened.
Okay.
See, all these stories that I'm trying to tell in the paper are going to get lost. because the generation that knows them is going to die. And we don't know all the stories they know. So we need to interview them on videotape and then pass it down to the next generation, or it gets lost.
Right.
So that's why I'm trying to do with the Lebanon News. Tell the old Lebanon stories through people who really still remember them.
That's wonderful. That's good advice too.
But the Piggly Wiggly story, that was some 60 years ago. And only a few people I could find were still alive that worked there. And they were bag boys. They were kids then. And they're in their 70s and 80s now. Think of that.
Well, I knew some of the names you mentioned, and I knew they were
Yeah,
older.
Johnny Hargis.
Yeah,
Yeah, 77 now. But he worked down there when he was in Lebanon.
and you're right. Those stories would be lost.
They're gone. And sometimes the old people don't even remember them. So it's even need to step it up.
Right.
Well,
Sounds like we all have some homework to do, right?
Even myself now,
Yeah.
I don't remember things as well.
Oh.
We were talking about the importance of sharing and writing them down.
So, are viewers welcome to reach out to you in some way to
Yeah,
ask
they are.
questions and how?
Some people have written their own family biographies because of the stories I did. Well, let me tell you about my guy. Let me tell you about
Yeah.
my wife. And people are writing stories on the Lebanon News that never did before.
That's awesome. You're inspiring people. Yes. So, how do you prefer that people contact you? Through email?
Yeah, NewsIQ at Hotmail,
Okay.
my email, or that's the best way.
Okay, we'll flash that.
Do a little lady.
Yeah, this is a great staircase. You think about it, it's 190 years old. This building is 190 years old.
It's kind of crazy to think about, isn't it?
People were smaller then.
In that even their feet, the
They really
steps are
were.
so small.
An average Civil War soldier was about 5'6", 150. I think Grant was only 5'8". Lee was like 6, maybe 5'11", but Grant was 5'8".
I did not. Nothing
How
but.
many bedrooms did it have, you know?
Actually, it had these 3 rooms up here, and well, this was built on. So originally there was 2 bedrooms.
Oh.
And I think they used one as a living room, one as a den, and then like a little kitchen.
You're here.
This is the start of our media room. So we're just now getting it set up, but we've already been able to move into different states with all of the internet stuff. But I never thought about trying to do something like that.
That's a great idea.
We're in Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, West Virginia. We're in 5 states now.
You have to have different licenses in different states.
You do.
Over the staircase. Well, if you fell, you'd fall forever.
That's further
That is
down over.
scary. But ours had a ladder like that that came down.
It's a weird place.
That's what I thought.